All right, CYSA practice exam number 11. Going right through it, going to go jump right into it. You'll notice that a lot of what we do in CYSA is a little bit different than what you may see in Security Plus. A lot more logging questions, a lot more tool output questions. I would definitely understand before going into CYSA Plus, which we really can't do on a YouTube video, how to identify and utilize certain commands, right? We're not talking about huge commands, but you should be able to work your way through a command prompt, right? You should be able to ping commands. You should be able to critically think and understand the different complexities of the network as a whole. Understand how our firewall functions. There's a lot more that goes into it, right? So make sure you're reading through CYSA before you jump into the exam. It is definitely not Security Plus. Definitely not Security Plus. All right, jumping right into it. Question number 1, a cybersecurity analyst is conducting a post-incident review following a successful SQL injection attack that compromised sensitive customer data. Which of the following actions should the analyst prioritize to strengthen the organization's security posture and prevent similar incidents in the future? What do you think? I feel like this one's somewhat easy, believe it or not. It may not seem that way, but I think it is. We're gonna answer this one. We're just gonna jump right into it. I'm trying to make these videos a little bit quicker, a little bit shorter. Let's go ahead and jump into this one. If you need more time, you can always pause it. Right? A cybersecurity analyst is conducting a post-incident review following a successful SQL injection attack that compromised sensitive customer data. Which of the following actions should the analyst prioritize to strengthen the organization's security posture and prevent similar incidents in the future? I feel like A is an easy one to get rid of, right? Update web application firewall rules to block SQL injection attacks. First off, your WAF should already be set up to do that, right? That shouldn't be one of the big things, right? That should definitely not be number 1 on our list, I don't think, right? I mean, especially since that should be pretty much generic. That should be like, if I have a WAF, I expect it to do that. And if it doesn't, then I'm not buying that WAF again. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to call the vendor and be like, hey, why does your WAF suck so much, right? I feel like that's something I would do. All right. Let's move down to D, increase the frequency of network scans to detect vulnerabilities earlier. Well, while I admit that conducting network scans will, and here's the thing, right? It says increase the frequency of network scans to detect vulnerabilities earlier. I don't feel like network scans would actually identify a lot of vulnerabilities. It would understand some of that, but it definitely wouldn't help out with SQL injection attacks. Maybe a vulnerability scan, but not a network scan. And so D is a surefire one to get rid of too. I feel like D is another one that we just like, nope, not going to use that one. I don't know how a network scan would pick up an SQL injection attack. I can see a vulnerability scan. I 100% could, but I couldn't see a network scan. Something like Nmap or man, I cannot think today, right? Something like Nmap, network mapper. That's what I think about when I say network scanner. Definitely not going to do that, right? That leaves B and C. C, conduct a full-scale data recovery option to restore lost customer data. Or B, implement input validation for parameterized queries in web application code. I feel like this really depends on what the question is asking. These are 2 good answers, but what is the question actually asking? So it says, which of the following actions should the analyst prioritize to strengthen the organization's security posture and prevent similar incidents in the future? If we look at what the question is asking us, right? And this is important for any certification exam. Then conducting a full-scale data recovery operation to restore lost customer data makes no sense. Because that's not what the question is asking us, right? That would be, how do we recover from it? But we're not trying to recover from it. We're trying to increase our posture, increase our security posture, and prevent similar attacks in the future. And so implementing input validation and parameterized queries in the web application code, that would be best. And for those that would argue that A was a good answer as well, update the web application firewall rules to block SQL injection attacks, I would even say, even if I assumed, which I don't, but even if I assume that our WAF didn't already do that, then B would still be a better answer because we want to do it at the code. We want to do it at the code. The web application firewall it's a band-aid. It's not a fix, right? The fix would be implementing input validation. So B is going to be the correct answer. All right, question number 2. An organization has recently implemented a SIEM solution to improve its threat detection capabilities. During the initial configuration, The security team is overwhelmed with many false positives. Which actions should the team take to optimize the SIEM's effectiveness? This is a good one. What do you think about this one? Right? A little bit on the other side of it. What do you think? Again, one of those important aspects of these questions is to read through, and look at what it's asking. We want to make sure that we're actually answering the question that's being asked, not the question that we think it's asking us. What the question is actually asking us. Now, I know some people get so annoyed when I say that. That's the way it is. All right, let's answer this one. If you need more time, of course, you can pause that video. An organization has recently implemented a SIEM solution to improve its threat detection capabilities. During the initial configuration, the security team is overwhelmed with many false positives. This is typical of a SIEM. We're always having to do something to it, right? Which action should the team take to optimize the SIEM's effectiveness? Disable alerting for all low priority events to reduce noise. I mean, I guess we could do that to kind of lighten the load, but not something I would want to do. Definitely not something that I would. It's not the top of my list. Not. I mean, and that's more on the foundational side. Like I'm in charge of a SOC, and I would like to do this because we got too much coming in, and we need to prioritize because we have a manpower issue. But you got to remember, in CompTIA, remember, unicorns are rainbows. Unicorns are rainbows. We don't have a manpower issue. We don't have a problem with capacity. We don't have a problem with anything unless the problem states we do. That's the only time we have a problem. CompTIA exams are 100% unicorns and rainbows. We have unlimited resources, unlimited manpower. That is never an issue. In which case, unless the question tells us we do, right? In which case, in this instance, I have to say disabling alerting for low priority events to reduce noise doesn't make sense. If we've got unlimited resources, we have unlimited manpower, that's not going to be an issue based on what the question is giving. So definitely not going to be on my list, right? Adjust the SIEM correlation rules to reduce false positives and fine-tune alert thresholds. I like this question. I like this answer. This is actually a good answer for the most part. Let's keep B on the top of our mind. Let's put that on the bottom, right? Increase the logging level on all systems to capture more detailed information. If I'm already having issues with it, and we want to capture more detailed information, I think I would have to look at this, right? During the initial configuration, the security team is overwhelmed with many false positives. Which actions should the team take to optimize the team's effectiveness? I don't feel like C makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, yeah, we want it to be more accurate, but we're not talking about accuracy. We're talking about more detailed information. And a lot of times, we've already got detailed information. There's nothing in here that stipulates that we need more detailed information. I feel like this is like throwing a bone at us. I feel like this is not the proper answer, so definitely not going to be C. All right, and then let's see. Install additional SIEM agents on all endpoints to improve data collection. Install additional SIEM agents on all endpoints to improve data collection. Again, not something that I would jump at the beginning for. Not really something that makes a lot of sense on this aspect of it. So when we look at this, it says during the initial configuration, the security team is overwhelmed with many false positives. Adjusting the SIEM correlation rules to reduce false positives and fine-tune thresholds. I mean, that is literally what it's asking us to do. And so B is going to be our correct answer on this one. B is going to be the correct answer. And there it is. All right, moving on. Question number 3. A cybersecurity analyst is conducting a forensic investigation of a compromised server. The analyst discovers that the attacker used a rootkit to maintain persistent access to the system. What is the best immediate action the analyst should take to ensure the investigation's integrity? All right, what do you think about this one? Remember, we need to read what the question is asking us. All right, if you need more time, we're just going to jump into this one. If you need more time, pause that video. We're going to go and answer it. A cybersecurity analyst is conducting a forensic investigation of a compromised server. We know the server's already been compromised. The analyst discovers the attacker used a rootkit to maintain persistent access to the system. Rootkit's a nasty little thing. What is the best immediate action the analyst should take to ensure the investigation's integrity? Remove the rootkit from the system to prevent further damage. I mean, yeah, I would want to remove the rootkit from the system, but that's not what the question is asking us. The question is asking us the best immediate action the analyst should take to ensure the integrity the system, the investigation's integrity. The investigation's integrity, not to fix the problem, right? And so A doesn't make a lot of sense. Isolate the compromised server from the network to prevent further unauthorized access. I like isolating it. Definitely something I would want to do, and we would definitely want to stop further access. But that's not what the question's asking us. It says, what's the best immediate action should the analyst take to ensure the investigation's integrity? And so B, not going to be correct. Reboot the server to clear any active malicious processes. It just asked us to investigate integrity. I don't feel like that would make sense either. But D, create a full disk image of the compromised server for further analysis. That one answers the question. That's what answers the question. I feel like this is very much a case of what is the question asking me? Not what I think it's asking me. What is it actually asking me? And D is the only one that answers the actual question. The actual question. So 3 is going to be D. 3 is going to be D. Pretty easy one on that one if you just read the question. All right. Question number 4. A little bit of a logging one. A security analyst reviews firewall logs to identify any potential indicators of compromise. The analyst notices repeated connection attempts from an external IP address to a non-standard port on a web server. The logs show the following entries. Based on the log information, which actions should the analyst prioritize to secure the environment? To secure the environment. What do you think? What do you think? I know, we got to read through those logs. And again, this is one of those questions, right? Anytime I get a question like this, where it's giving me a tool output or a log output, I'm reading through the answers first. And I'm going to go through and actually identify and reverse it. I'm not going to try and read through the logs. That's not what I'm going to do. My goal is to disprove the answer. Disprove the answer. If I disprove the answer, then I'm good to go. Then I will find the correct answer. And so it's a process of elimination where I'm eliminating as many of the answers as possible. I don't want to try and answer a question that's not there. And so, or an answer that's not there. And so how I answer these questions is I literally go through and I start looking at the possible choices and then eliminate them one at a time. And even if I find what I think is the correct answer, I'm not going to jump on it. I want to eliminate all possible answers. This is something that I commonly see students make, is there'll be 2 correct answers, but which one is more correct? And so we need to be able to identify that right off the bat. All right, let's answer this one. Let's take time to do that. If you need more time, of course, you can always pause the video. All right, so security analyst reviews firewall logs to identify potential indicators of compromise. The analyst notices repeated connection attempts for an external IP address to a non-standard port on the web server. The logs show the following entries. Apparently, you can't talk today. Based on the log information, which action should the analyst prioritize to secure the environment? Block IP address 198.151.100.23 on the firewall to prevent further connection attempts. And so 198.51.100.23.23. Here we go. Destination port 8080. TCP. It's allowed. We see a timestamp. Okay. Same IP address. Still operating on 8080. Allowed. And we see a new timestamp. So it looks like it just connected twice. Literally within 5 seconds of each other. Again, nothing totally abnormal with that, except for that port IP, that port address right there. And then 23 again, 8080, TCP allowed, and then allowed on there 5 seconds later. So we're seeing repeated connections associated with it, all on the same port, all to the same IP address, all using TCP. It looks like the only thing difference is the 5 seconds between each one. It looks like it's a perfect 5 seconds, which is a little bit weird. I'd like to see at least one more to negotiate a pattern here. But based on what I've got, it looks like 5 seconds every time. So definitely, A is a possible one. I would definitely calculate A as a maybe, right? Redirect traffic on port 80 to port 80, port 8080 to port 80 to avoid non-standard port use. That doesn't work. That's not a thing. We don't do that. That means somebody had to open up port 8080, right? And it has to be port 80 available. I don't know why we would do that. I can't think of a single reason why we would redirect traffic on the firewall from port 8080 to port 80. It just doesn't seem like something we would utilize, right? I could block port 8080, but I could just shut down port 8080 on the server. So again, I don't get this one. B doesn't make sense to me. Conduct a vulnerability scan on the web server to identify potential security weaknesses. I'm looking at a firewall, and it wants me to conduct a vulnerability scan of the web server to identify potential security weaknesses, but all I have is a firewall. It doesn't really show that 8080 is actually a weakness either. All we're seeing is that port 8080 is open on this IP address. I don't know if this makes sense. This doesn't make sense to me at all, right? Conduct a vulnerability scan. We're not seeing any signs of a vulnerability. We would conduct a vulnerability scan on the norm, but I don't see a reason to stop and conduct a vulnerability scan right now based on what I'm seeing here. There's nothing that stands out that says, hey, there's malware or that there's a vulnerability on this server. All it's basically showing me is that port 8080 is open, which is a little bit weird, but not out of the ordinary either. I mean, I don't see this as being, C doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? Change the default firewall configuration to deny all traffic by default. So you want me to stop all traffic into my internal network. That's what D wants me to do. That doesn't make any sense at all either. I think the only right answer is A. A is the only one that makes sense, right? Block the IP address on the firewall to prevent further connection attempts. If we're identifying this IP address as connecting every 5 seconds on the norm, which is a little bit weird. Normally we don't see every 5 seconds on the 5 seconds. That screams to me machine. That screams to me automated process, right? Then that's a problem, right? And then so 198.51.100.23, based on the limited information I have and based on the answers available, A is the only one that makes sense. It is. So we're going to block the IP address on there. A. A is going to be the correct answer. All right, question number 5. A cybersecurity analyst uses Prowler to perform a security assessment of the organization's AWS environment. The following excerpt from Prowler output is observed. Based on the Prowler output, which actions should the analyst prioritize to improve the AWS environment's security posture? And then we have 4 possible answers. You may be asking yourself, okay, wait a second. Do I need to know Prowler for CYS? Yeah, it's on the outputs. It's on the objectives, believe it or not. Prowler is specifically called out, which is a little bit weird. I'm not a fan of that because you really can't go out there and practice Prowler on web servers. And so you're limited on your capability. But yeah, it's definitely a tool that I would expect an output from. And again, we're going to approach this the same way that we did the last question. We're gonna go through each question, and then we're literally going to go through and identify whether it makes sense or whether it doesn't make sense, and we're going to eliminate. We're going to process and eliminate. We're not going to look for things we don't need to look for. In a lot of ways, sometimes I don't even look at the logs beforehand, and that's kind of a lie. I always skim through them, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, right? So again, if you need more time, let's go ahead and answer this one. Yeah, let's answer this one. I feel like we can. All right, let's start with A. Enable. Well, let's read it, right? Sir, let's see. Ensure IAM policies are attached only to groups or roles, not users. Okay. So we see a status of fail because we see that the IAM policy is attached to a user, right? So that failed. And we see the DTL user John Doe has attached policy to administrator access. So we're seeing that right off the bat, Prowler is identifying that as a problem. And we see that, okay? Check 31, ensure no security groups allow ingress from 0000 to port 22. Okay, so from to port 22. So it's saying SSH, right? So we see fail, we see security group, detail security group, and it provides us, allows ingress from 0.0.0.0/0 to port 22. So that's an issue. And then we see ensure CloudTrail is enabled on all regions. We see that passed. And so we know that CloudTrail is, in fact, enabled on all regions. Okay, so enable CloudTrail logging in all regions to monitor account activity. We just identified that CloudTrail is doing that. It literally says that. It's enabled in all regions. Logging in all regions to monitor. Yeah, we got that. So A doesn't make any sense. It's already enabled. It's right there. All right, B. Detach the administrator access policy from the user John Doe and reassign it to a group or role. Detach administrator access policy from user John Doe and reassign it to a group or role. We see that could be a possible answer because it is seeing that it failed, and we see that it's attached to a user. It's definitely there. It's John Doe, and it has administrator access. So definitely a possibility, right? It's a good answer. I like it. It really is. But is it the best answer? C. Reconfigure security group SG. Oh, no, I have to find that. To restrict XSH access specific IP addresses. So refuse, let's see, OA1, I'm just going to look 789. That's this one right here, right? So we see here, ensure no security group allow ingress from 0.0.0.0 to port 22. And so again, another good answer to restrict SSH access to specific IP addresses. And so both B and C are good answers. Matter of fact, both are correct. Investigate CloudTrail logs to identify any potential unauthorized access. There's nothing on here to stipulate that we need to do an investigation. There's nothing there. So it's either B or C. And so B and C are both correct. We see detach administrator access policies to John Doe, and we need to reconfigure security. So which one's the better answer? Because they're both correct, right? According to this, both of them are correct. Which one's better?
No.
And I would challenge you to say that C is better. Why is C better? Well, C was better because a lot of times I want a user set up for administrator access. I want that, right? And so it kind of stands to reason that I would actually have that I would go against that policy. But even if I didn't, even if I wanted to change this, which one's more dangerous? I would say that allowing ingress from 0.0.0.0 is much more dangerous, right, than going any other aspect, right? Definitely more dangerous of the two, okay? And so the answer is going to be C. It's going to be C, right? And so we need to understand that this is not the best policy, right? And that it's going to be C associated. All right, I hope you learned something from this one. If you did, great. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.